Country are you from?
I'm Australian, but I've been here 14 years.
Okay, so you're a British young man,
British,
yeah?
yeah.
So what do you think about this gathering here?
I think it's a disgrace. I'd love to see the government actually remove the entire thing and restore the square to what it was before. I think you're just taking the piss here.
Is that what you think? Okay, and what do you think?
I don't really know. There are some colourful flags here.
Right.
Although they shouldn't really be putting tents up here. They don't really need to.
You don't think so?
No.
No. Do you know what's going on here? Do you know why the people are
Yeah,
here?
they're protesting against the war happening in the Middle East.
In Afghanistan, yeah?
Yes.
What do you think? What do you think about the idea? Why are we in Afghanistan? Do you know?
Well, we're in Afghanistan because the Taliban attacked us. As a consequence, we decided to get rid of the Taliban because the government in Afghanistan wouldn't do so. We're now there. We hopefully should extricate ourselves, but it must be said we're there partly to, I think, bring democracy or at least a form of civilization to a 13th century country.
Right. So you think the Afghanistani people, perhaps like the Iraqis, are better off?
Yes,
with this country.
Absolutely. Women are getting educated back in Afghanistan now, which wasn't happening before the war.
And what do you think about the fact that 1 million people, many of them women and children, have been killed in Iraq? What do you think about that?
I think you don't know what you're talking about.
I'm asking you. I don't know. Maybe it's wrong.
I don't believe that 1 million figure
how many?
What
What figure do you think it is?
And maybe 50,000, maybe 100,000. But let me put it to you: most of those victims in Iraq are victims of fellow Muslims. It's not from us. We didn't kill these people. The fact that the Shiites and Sunnis went to war, which is a tragedy, but it was their fault. Right. We didn't create that war. We created conditions that enabled that war to take place, absolutely. But we removed the most genocidal, homicidal maniac on the planet at the time.
Right.
I think the war in Iraq was just as justified as the war in Afghanistan. And I think the fact that you guys take the piss and create a shit area here constantly annoys me. And I wish the government would do something about you guys.
Yeah, you seem very angry.
I am.
You seem very angry.
I think it's outrageous that you guys create what I regard as
What's the anger? What's the anger about?
Because I support the right to protest. This chap has been here for 5 years.
Yeah.
And I think at some point the government should do something about clearing this up and restoring it to what it was,
Right.
which is a beautiful park, a beautiful square in the centre of London. I understand you guys.
Just 1 sec. Can I'm just doing an interview. Just 1 sec. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
I'm happy if you guys are allowed the right to protest, absolutely. But there are times they should let you come in for a weekend perhaps, but not in perpetuity. Now I'm not saying the 10 village here is in perpetuity because I haven't seen this before. He's in perpetuity. He'd be the first I'd take out because he's been here so long. I don't think he's achieving anything except his own self-publicity.
Yeah.
And I empathise with you to a certain extent. I don't agree with you, but at the same time I understand people feel very strongly
When you
about
say
the
you
war.
don't agree with me, how do you know what I think?
Oh, it's clear what you think. I just heard
Why?
you talking.
What do I think?
What you think is you hate the war in Afghanistan, you hate the war in Iraq, and you wish the British troops out immediately, and you think we're conducting some sort of genocide in Iraq. That's clearly what you're saying, because you just said a minute ago that you're being very sardonic about the fact that British aerospace needs to make money as well, and that's the real reason we're in the Middle East is for oil or for profits, which I think is bogus, completely bogus. Do you honestly
think it's
believe,
completely bogus?
Completely bogus. Do you think America is squandering so many trillions of dollars in wars in the Middle East because they want the oil? Absolutely not. They went in there because they thought perhaps naively that they could bring democracy to Iraq. It's proved not to be the case.
Right, so what you're saying is, understand it correctly, is you think that the American politicians are not being influenced at all by arms companies, the media. I'm
not saying that they're not influenced at all by the arms companies. I think that people like Bechtel did make quite a lot of money out of the war, but that wasn't the reason they went in the first place. They didn't go in to try and make money. They went in to get rid of Saddam Hussein.
Yeah.
Which they did do.
Right.
And the fact that the Iraqi people have turned on each other shows what a fratricidal and incongruous country it was in the first place. The fact that Saddam Hussein had been in power for 25 years, the fact that when he was taken out of power, the country degenerated into an orgy of violence, was symptomatic of the fact that the country was very unstable. And the reason it was unstable is because of Saddam Hussein's genocidal policies.
Right.
That's my view.
And what about other countries like North Korea, for example?
What about North Korea?
Well, you know what the North Korean leader gets up to. I mean, why choose a specific, country?
Because we could.
Because we could.
Yes, absolutely. As Tony Blair said, and Tony Blair is a real hero of mine, but as he said, we can't solve all the problems of the world, but we can solve some of them. So what do you think about the fact we went into Sierra Leone and created we stopped the war in Sierra Leone because we intervened? Was that wrong?
I don't know. I don't know enough about it.
Oh, clearly, okay. You pick your wars, do you? Well,
no, I don't know.
Sierra Leone was a situation, there was a huge war going on. Children were having their limbs chopped off by militias in Sierra Leone. The British went in and they were ostensibly to evacuate Western people, but they stayed on and they disarmed the militias, and now Sierra Leone's in peace. What do you think about Bosnia? What happened in Bosnia was the Americans intervened against a Christian nation which was oppressing a Muslim nation and stopped Milosevic attacking Bosnia. Kosovo, sorry.
It's funny because that's not what I have very, very little knowledge of these things, but that's not what
Look,
I've heard from
if you
people
have
who
such
are there.
knowledge, why are you
who
here
are there.
spouting through a loudspeaker at people?
Well, you
Clearly,
don't know why I'm here.
Will you tell me why you're here?
I'm here because I believe in using humour to get people to question whatever position they're stuck in, whatever position they're stuck in.
I'm saying,
so, for example, one of the things we said before is I'm here for the campaign of nuclear armament because I want to see us having more nuclear weapons so we can get this thing over with quickly.
Yeah, that's meant to be sardonic, isn't it? That's meant to be
Well,
ironic.
it is, and it's meant to make people think. And they can think what they like. Now, one of the things I'm noticing about you, and I think the viewers will notice about you, which is very, very common, and it's common to me too at times, is that you seem extremely sure of yourself, worryingly so.
The reason I'm sure of myself is because I have done my research. It's what worries me is people like you who are spouting off here obviously don't know. You don't know what happened in Sierra Leone. You clearly don't know what happened with Versa Milosevic and the Balkans. You claim that we could do something about North Korea, or why don't we do something about North Korea? Are you aware North Korea has nuclear weapons?
Yes, I know.
So
North
were we
Korea
to
has
attack
nuclear
North Korea, not that I think we should, but were we to do so, we would start a nuclear conflagration. So that's out. What should we do about Zimbabwe? Nothing. Why? Because to do so would be to reinstate the concept of imperialism, whereby we go in and intervene in a black majority country, which we can't be seen to do. So the fact that we can't do all of these things doesn't mean we shouldn't do any. So the fact that we could take out Saddam Hussein was a good thing. The fact that we can do something about reinstating some form of government in Afghanistan when it was a 13th century tribal country, women were not allowed to be educated under the Taliban. They weren't even allowed to go outside. I'm sure you're aware of this. Do you not think it's a good thing if women start to get an education in Afghanistan? Do you think it's a good thing if suddenly the flower of potential democracy starts? It's questionable whether democracy can really occur in the Middle East because of the strictures of Islamic fundamentalism, but it must be said, it wasn't a bad thing to try.
Are you asking me a question because you want to hear my answer, or
Yes,
have you decided how it is?
No, I don't know if you know enough about it. I'm asking, do you think it's a good thing that women now get an education in Afghanistan?
I'm going to think about that for a moment, okay?
Okay. Do you believe that the reason America went into Iraq is because of oil?
I'm still on the first question.
Okay.
I think the situation, as in many situations, is paradoxically complex and simple. So, regarding women's education in Afghanistan, on the one hand, I personally feel really uncomfortable when I'm exposed to seeing Islamic fundamentalists or any fundamentalism. I find that very, very uncomfortable, and therefore, the idea of controlling any group, be it women, be it blacks, be it whatever, any group of people, or be it poor people over rich, that idea it doesn't fit well with me at all. So yes, of course, that aspect of what happened, I think, seems like very good, right? But it's complicated, and I am not sure that justifies sending in people to war. There's got to be, as far as I'm concerned, there just has to be another way. And I guess where I'm coming from my experience is not so much reading the newspapers or even reading up history books. I admit that I'm not knowledgeable about that. My area is of a tiny little bit of understanding, right? Really, in reality, I don't have any areas of expertise, but my area of tiny bit of understanding is the human psyche, is my own psyche, is to understand how money and power fuck with our minds big time. And I've been sitting here watching that debacle of what goes on in that place, and watching the humanity. Why is it debacle? Because these people are... you have to watch them. I'll tell you why. I'll give you the reason why it's debacle. Go and speak to some journalists and ask them, is there something going on here that's being kind of covered up? And they'd say, yeah. Well, when these politicians are off camera, they're complete arseholes. They're just in it. They're just, they are, in my understanding, if I was to grade someone as having serious mental health issues, not that I think there's anything wrong with that. I have compassion for David Cameron. I think he's got serious mental health issues. Yeah, he hasn't been tested before, and hold on a second. Hold on. So, what goes on in there is manipulation. Unbelievable amount of manipulation without them knowing it, because their level of consciousness is so limited given the job itself.
Do you think by definition anybody that goes into politics is somehow mentally ill?
No, I couldn't possibly say that.
Do you believe that politics is essential? Do we need a government?
I don't know.
So you're potentially a nihilist. You believe
I'm
in
not
possibly-
potentially. I'm potentially in everything. You know why? Because I try and have an open mind. Therefore, I'm potentially in anything. I'm potentially a nihilist, a fascist. I'm potentially a communist. I'm potentially an anarchist. I'm potentially a Christian. I'm potentially a Muslim. I'm potentially an atheist. I'm potentially absolutely everything. And
I understand why I find that incredibly wishy-washy. You're simply suggesting that everything is okay. But
it's funny you should say that, because I just have I have a big sign over there which says exactly that.
do we need laws in this country?
I don't know. What do you think?
Absolutely, we need laws. Why?
Do you?
Why do you think we might?
How many laws do we need?
Well, do we have too many laws?
Have you ever?
Possibly.
How much time have you spent in court to watch who gets abused by those laws?
I haven't
How many
spent any
times
time
have
in
you?
court.
How many times have you been on the wrong end of the law?
I haven't been on the wrong end of the
Well,
law
you know
yet,
what?
because
Here's
I
a
obey the law.
suggestion for you.
Yeah.
Instead of getting really angry, because I think the reason why you're angry here is mainly because you don't really understand what's going on, and I can accept that, and I'm not saying you're wrong or right. But what might be interesting is, instead of, anger isn't good for you,
I
right?
acknowledge that. Yes.
Okay. So therefore, instead of
But nor is ignorance good for you. And the fact is, the reason you're here, presumably, is not because you want to embrace all ideologies. You're espousing a particular ideology, which
Am
is
I?
against. Yes, you are. The reason you're here in Democracy Village is because, and making sardonic comments about the need for weapons manufacturers in the West to make a profit, is because you're trying to make humour to try and make a point that you think there must be a better way than to have war. I understand war is the last resort.
I think that there are things going on much, much deeper in the psyche of the human being, in the way we give power to people, and how we give it to them, and who we give it to. Yeah, and these people over there, right? If they went to psychoanalysts, the psychoanalysts would have a field day. A field day. You
sorry,
speak
but
to
I
young
reject
children.
that
You
entirely.
speak to young children who are educated in Westminster, who come past here and tell you the type of experiences they have in their posh schools, the experiences of absolute widespread use of drugs, right? Which isn't necessarily wrong. I'm not saying. I just wish they'd stop telling me what I can do in my own house, right? Widespread use of drugs, but more importantly, the bullying that goes on, and who the bullies end up becoming, where they end up going.
So the fact that Nick Clegg was an ex-Westminster boy shows that he was used to a culture of bullying, which he's now doing in his day job as leader of the
Well,
Democrats.
I don't know. I'm not saying there's a direct link between him and
You are
anyone
trying to- well, not
specifically.
him specifically.
I'm saying that we live, that we have elected people who have not had full mental health assessments. Yeah, they do not have, for example, in this country, you couldn't become the CEO of Tesco unless A, you went through psychometric testing, right, and B, you'd have to have a lot of understanding of retail. C, you'd have to have a lot of management skills. They wouldn't just take a bloke because he was clever at working his way up the top of some sort of organisation by stepping on other
Sorry,
people.
but-